I'm very pleased to say that I'm joined with Amanda from Niantic today to start our series on Darabase Meets. Amanda, do you want to just quickly start by just telling us a little bit more about what you do over at Niantic A4?
Absolutely. And thanks for having me, Oliver. So I manage the Eighth Wall Partner Program. Eighth Wall, for anyone who doesn't know, is the web AR side of Niantic. So we focus on providing web AR as a technology to developers, brands, marketers, anyone interested in getting into the web augmented reality space. So I work with a bunch of trusted studios around the world, Darabase being one of them, to enable your brand or your agency to use our technology.
Brilliant. Thank you. Right, well, let's get straight into the questions then. So the first one is themed around location-based AR and kind of mixed reality integration. So augmented reality, has the potential to really blend seamlessly into specific locations. We've sort of noticed that can provide unique and immersive experiences. How do you kind of see the use of location and mixed reality kind of AR evolving, specifically within certain environments? And are there any kind of industries that you think will benefit from that integration?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. So here at Niantic, I mean, we are so excited about building out the map of the world in AR. That is one of our company values and main mission, I would say. So when it comes to location-based AR or visual positioning systems, which we call VPS, we are so gung-ho and all for it. We have been improving our VPS feature over, the past couple of years, and I would say we are super excited to continue to enable developers and brands to use it. I think what's amazing about VPS as well as location-based AR is the improved tracking. So your AR experience is what we call like very sticky. So it really seamlessly blends kind of the digital and physical world, which we like to see. And I think just what you can do with a 3D model is pretty amazing. So, with our VPS tool, you can create kind of custom scans, which build up what we call a wave spot. So you can, utilize statues, landmarks, et cetera, to kind of be the basis and sort of template for your experience. And so some of the examples that, we've seen across the board are just, creating something so imaginative and different and creative with something that you might see every single day. So, as a New Yorker surrounded by landmarks, statues, and it's amazing to see when someone decides to bring those to life digitally, in a different way than you could ever think of. So I'm very excited to kind of see how location-based AR continues to grow. And, we really want to be a proponent of that in our space. With our games as well. I should say Pokemon Go is a great example, of course. And our newest game, Monster Hunter, same thing. We utilize our world map very strategically. So in terms of industries that I think will benefit, I mean, the first just top level is the retail environment, of course, getting people excited about whether it's, shopping in store or experiencing a certain collection. I think we've seen a lot more of these kind of interactive, immersive exhibits in the past couple of years. And then people are very excited to bring people back, specifically kind of after COVID and the pandemic. So that's just the first one top of mind. I would say, we were talking about specifically malls earlier. Malls are a great example of a way to get people excited about, some of the maybe what seems like an overwhelming map of stores in a mall and get them excited about going to one specific location and making it feel a little bit more accessible potentially. I do think real estate is another one, of course, which sort of ties into retail. But that being said, I really think that location-based AR could be used across the board. I don't think there are any rules. I think it really just depends on what you're trying to do with the location-based experience, like what is going to bring value to your brand. And that's always our goal. So no matter how cool we think AR is, if it doesn't bring your brand or the experience value, it's not worth it to use it. So we really want you thinking about who your audience is, who's going to be partaking in this experience and what they want out of it.
Yep. Okay. Well, we're going to touch on a little bit more about retail as we are kind of we see that focus happening across the board. So we'll touch back on that in a short while. Thinking about the future, in terms of the type of experiences that AR can offer. You in terms of what you do at Niantic and Eighth Wall, you're in a unique position perhaps to be able to give us some secrets as to what's coming down the track. So looking ahead to kind of 5 to 10 years, how do you envisage kind of augmented reality reshaping our daily experiences? So what I mean by that is what transformative developments can we expect, and what disruptions do you foresee that will fundamentally change how we interact with the technology in the world around us?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I hope that I wish I could see the future. So these are only my, initial thoughts and ideas. But I will say right now we are very tied into our mobile devices, as we have been, over the past decade or so. And I think what we will see is a lot more AR experiences across many different types of devices, whether that be, mixed reality glasses, or others, headsets potentially. I mean, we're already seeing it with, Meta's kind of Ray-Ban partnership, and how you can kind of wear those on a day-to-day basis. I think that's like a great start. But yeah, I think that'll be the main difference. And then also, what I'm excited about is also just the always improving quality of the 3D models and quality of the AR interactions and experiences themselves, where, like I kind of mentioned before, I think that the seamlessness to them is so important to, like really truly immersing the audience. I also think we'll see a lot more AR, hopefully, in different advertising formats as well. We saw a resurgence last year in out-of-home experiences, like connected experiences with QR codes and, of course, strong CTAs. And so I think, when I speak for my team, we're super excited to see kind of more formats within the 360 marketing mix exploring AR solutions and kind of like connected solutions as a part of that advertising. So yeah, I think it's just going to be, more integrated into our daily life, essentially, as we have more devices, is kind of my hope and interpretation.
Yeah, I think we're with you on that, and particularly with Apple Vision Pro, of course.
Exactly.
I know it's not necessarily an AR device, but let's face it, when they change our behavior and what we do and how we do things, the rest of the world tends to follow suit, right? So that's another interesting thing that we're very soon about to see what it will do. Okay, so let's sort of now move a little bit more towards business impact. You've already touched on a few things about how, from a marketing perspective, you can see real business effect. From a metrics perspective, thinking about augmented reality has the potential to really offer a lot for businesses. So thinking about kind of from a broader perspective, what key business impacts do you anticipate as AR becomes more integrated into marketing strategies and, really importantly, consumer interactions?
Yeah, sure. Tricky question, just because there's so many things, different things we could cover. But I do think conversion, number one, you see, we are spammed with video content these days as a consumer across social media, across, any kind of media we're consuming, whether that's like, just even reading, you're kind of spammed with video ads specifically that, you're just kind of expected to watch them like a commercial. Most recently, we've seen a lot of CGI based experiences, like you mentioned, where kind of you're watching a video, you're not really interacting. And so I think, the key sort of metric that comes with increase in sales and conversion with AR is the interaction piece, right? You're asking the user to do something. And usually when you're incentivizing people to do something, it sticks with them more. Like they remember it more, it's more interesting. And that doesn't mean it has to be longer, right? It can still fit your 15-second to 30-second kind of format of how you think about videos. But I think just having the consumer, opt into doing something that they want to do interaction wise will lead to more sales. And we've seen that. And it's all about different ways that you promote it, right? Like no one's going to do your experience if you don't promote it properly or incentivize users to do it. So I think we see the most powerful numbers when users are incentivized, the CTA is clear, it's a really strong user experience. So yeah, I'm excited to see more brands use AR for conversion purposes versus just, I think a lot of times we see AR experiences that look great, but like I said, don't really deliver on necessarily like the value for the brand. So as long as the experience is value focused, it adds to the brand's goals, whatever that may be as a part of the funnel, right? Maybe it's just brand awareness versus like increase in sales or conversion. Then, hopefully you can work with one of our partners like a Darabase to accomplish that.
Yep. We hear you, and it's something that we're always trying to educate clients to do, but it's harder said than done.
It is.
And you're right though. Get that right, and then all of the investment into that AR experience just goes so much further, and it's so much more meaningful.
Yeah, and that also will inform like the creative as well, right?
Yeah,
so it's
absolutely.
Yeah. So it's not about just saying, I want to do an experience with AI. It's intentionally using AI within AR or, another creative method. Maybe it's just like an AR portal to accomplish something that the brand will see results from.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's sort of almost continue on that theme, because you mentioned things like conversion, which is really interesting and something which, of course, a lot of marketers, if not all, are looking for at some stage in their plan. So if we now just look at one industry in retail and kind of e-commerce or 3D commerce, as I'm starting to see a lot more use of. So the retail landscape is evolving. I mean, I think you mentioned the pandemic before and how that kind of changed a lot of our behavior, particularly when it comes to shopping. So kind of picking up on that theme a little bit, with that evolution in the retail landscape, and especially the growth of e-commerce and now potentially a little bit more 3D commerce, how do you see AR playing more of a pivotal role in enhancing the shopper experience, both online and actually in store? And are there any kind of specific applications that you've either seen or you're predicting?
Yeah, sure. I mean, what I've seen, as an avid shopper, a lover of fashion, specifically in the retail environment, I've seen a lot more physical activations over the past couple of years. A great example is, I'm thinking about one I saw in December, the Gucci store in the West Village. They actually had physical blow up bags kind of strapped to the side of the building, like physically scaling up the building. And I was thinking about just the time spent, the cost to do that, the application of it. And also those are temporary, right? Because fashion specifically, you're always going through different seasons. So it's not like that's a permanent installation. So I do think AR1 can cut down on your physical costs, production costs when it comes to like elevating your store space. And it could do it more digitally. Everyone is on their phone anyway. You may as well give them something to do with their phone while they are there. And I think that also excites them about, the in-store experience. Similarly, I would say, you can definitely use VPS as well. You could have your storefront be kind of the template and way spot or elements of indoors, like inside the store, of what you want consumers to see. I will say also another amazingly notable experience that we had on Eighth Wall was an experience built by Air Cards for Louis Vuitton, where they used VPS to capture so many different landmarks across major cities that had the collection. So it was a Kusama collection. And instead of just, covering the store and having the store be the main way spot, it was major elements of the city. So there was the Tokyo Tower, in Japan, and they had different elements in Miami. So I think that there's a nice way which you can tie in AR to a bunch of different retail locations. It doesn't just have to be one. So I think that's the first one. And then I also think like when it comes to online shopping and visualization, which is, totally different than the in-store experience, I think being able to see the size of these products is really important. I think it's, if you have like a product display page and you don't have a view in AR, kind of what are you doing? You should be doing that, especially when it comes to items where, the sizing can be misleading. Think handbags, for example, of course, the product is going to be blown up within the image, but unless you try it for yourself, how are you going to know? Same thing with, I think, a slightly different, but more on the kind of human AR face effect side, makeup, trying out different, products in that way and seeing it on yourself without actually having to even leave your home is pretty amazing, and also significantly helps. I would say most major makeup and beauty kind of brands have that on their website, specifically, like you can think Sephora, Ulta, for example, because a lot of people don't necessarily want to go back in store. I think there are still COVID concerns. I mean, even in New York, COVID is surging. So I can understand, also wanting to appeal to the user that might not want to go in store, or maybe they don't live close to a store. So I see that AR is like kind of a great way to bridge that gap. I also should say, you don't have to only do one experience, right? You can do multiple experiences. There aren't any rules when it comes to that. It's not as I would say cut and dry as if, when you're thinking about designing a campaign for out of home and you kind of want to do the same thing everywhere. With AR, you could have one experience in New York, you could have another in Miami, just depending on what your needs are. And so, yeah, I think AR kind of brings, a ton of value to the online shopping as well as in store. And a big part of that is location-based AR as well, kind of like what I mentioned earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting as well because from a sustainability perspective, of course, you mentioned about not having to build physical things in location, so there's an impact that could be saved there, as well as I think we saw a statistic that it's over 40% now of items aren't returned because people are able to sort of try before they buy, see how big they are, and therefore the return rate has reduced significantly, which has a brilliant impact on the shopper, experience, as well as the environmental impact of that particular retail transaction. So all positives, right, in terms of what it can offer. Okay. So maybe this kind of has a similar effect from a marketing perspective. So thinking increasingly, there's always a debate about branding versus kind of performance marketing. And it's one that there isn't necessarily a right answer, but there's certainly a balance. And we're starting to see AR play a bit more of a pivotal role in both of those sense. So thinking about sort of traditional digital marketing, I think you mentioned earlier that there's an attention economy issue going on right now with the kind of the huge influx of digital kind of impressions that are pushed upon you, particularly from video. So thinking about that, younger audiences, and how we kind of gain more engagement for marketers and more relevance for consumers. How can AR transition from being a platform that's just used by social platforms, maybe in things like kind of facial recognition tools and kind of face effects, to be more of a performance marketing tool? What metrics should marketers track? And how, as a spin-off from that, how can you see out of home really utilize that as an industry to enhance what it is that they do right now?
Yeah, sure. Great question. I think, well, first, I think the social platforms have really helped a younger audience feel comfortable with this idea of, I mean, you mentioned kind of face filters, but this idea of AR and bringing kind of like mixed reality together. So I think that is, very different than what you've seen in kind of past generations, where maybe, using your phone for something like that and kind of augmenting your world is something that's kind of uncomfortable for some of those users potentially, or new. So I think one, a way to kind of get a younger audience excited about the experiences you're creating is appeal to them, right? What is the product that they're interested in? How are in those videos, if you think about like TikTok videos, what are people how are people promoting your product for free? Because a lot of those videos aren't sponsored, right? You have a significant amount of paid ads. And of course, the platform like requires you to say paid ad, which I think is great. Same thing on Instagram. But you have a lot of free promotion as well. So I feel like I'm watching a lot of creators saying, oh, this is just my favorite tool or whatever. And so I would capitalize on kind of how they're talking about your product and then bring it to life in AR. And I will say the beauty of web AR specifically is that it lives on the web. You don't have to download an app. There's a lot less friction than there can be with having, maybe a million different platforms or maintaining the same creative across platforms. It's all web-based. So, we work, Eighth Wall is compatible on desktop, mobile devices, headsets, etc. So I think that's a piece of it, is just like access will help you with measuring kind of specifically who your audience is and how they're using your product and what they're interested in learning about your product. The second thing is we have a ton of in-depth analytical tools that we recommend our developers and brands to use. A newer one is called Metalytics, where we actually have a module within our module marketplace where you can really measure, the in-depth kind of interaction within the web AR experience. So it's not only just click-through rate and seeing how many people actually, enabled their camera and got into the experience, but what are they doing in it? Are they zooming in? Are they, tapping to place? Are they kind of willing to, maybe it's you prompt them with a form to enter their email. Like, are people actually doing that? So I think it can be used as more of a performance marketing tool than brands and agencies think, because of the in-depth analytics it can give you. Additionally, because we don't have analytics on Eighth Wall, we allow you to customize your analytics how you want them to be, right? So if you did just care about click-through rate, you can do that. And we have a ton of third-party recommendations, like a Google Analytics, for example, that could give you that KPI that you're looking for. But I do think that, like I kind of mentioned earlier, one of our other questions, I think prompting users to interact with the experience really gives you a lot of key data that maybe just using a filter might not, right? It tells you exactly what people were doing in the experience, how long, dwell time, how long they spent. So I will say that if you're interested in getting into, augmented reality, we're absolutely happy to help you kind of figure out what those metrics look like, what you should be looking for per your campaign or per your project.
And this is a kind of a bit of a follow on from that.
Sure.
And don't worry if you haven't got an answer for this, but I'm just thinking, we're often asked, and this is a really tough question, by the way, we're often asked kind of what's the normative data? What's the kind of, now our answer is normally, look, it's too specific. Every experience is different. It's almost impossible. But are you starting to see any kind of normative data come through from a kind of marketing or performance perspective? Or is it just still too sporadic and too unique?
I think it's unique. It's still very unique because it all depends on how you connect it with the rest of your marketing mix, right? So we can't say that even if there's a web AR experience that has the best user experience, the best creative, that doesn't mean that it's going to perform well. So it is difficult to give kind of a general metric of sort of where to gauge yourself, just because it's just all dependent on how you kind of are promoting your campaign and where you're promoting it, right? So I think, advertisers kind of, they do expect metrics, and we can deliver on with some basically on a campaign per campaign basis, some success metrics. I will say we have a couple of sort of general percentages as well as amount of money spent in the world on AR in general and the investment from brands. So we do have those types of metrics, which we're happy to share. But I do think that, analyzing each experience on a per campaign basis is really the best way to inform what you do next,
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's sort of finish up on that then. So you mentioned the media mix. Everyone's consistently re-looking at this depending on the requirements of their campaign. I've obviously seen that, and we talked about social media earlier and how it's sort of finding itself almost consistently on those platforms now, for good or for bad. It's kind of always there. Where do you see AR kind of more seamlessly sitting in the media mix going forward? I mean, we've also talked about web AR and you know how it can easily sit in out of home through QR codes. The same goes for any kind of physical or
Yep.
traditional ad format. What do you think that kind of evolution looks like? How is it more seamlessly done? What does good look like in that space?
Yeah, no, it's, I think that the beauty of web AR specifically is that it can be integrated into whatever the format is that you want to push and that you want to do. So, we mentioned, like you said, you mentioned out of home. Another great one is consumer packaged goods, where you
Mm.
already are printing packaging. It's very easy to print a QR code as well as a CTA within that packaging. And that also leads to longevity, right? Because most of the time, people who are printing this stuff want kind of a long-term flight of a project versus more of like a 1 month campaign. So I do think anywhere where you have kind of an easy place to display the QR code, an easy place to display a CTA telling users what to do with the experience will help. We've seen a ton of connected TV experiences as well. Specifically, I know the Super Bowl in the US is coming up. That's one of, the biggest advertising events. It's like advertising mecca. And we have had a ton of Super Bowl experiences in the past where they're either paired with commercials that you're seeing, where the QR code appears and there's a CTA, and there is a specific experience that the QR code triggers that is connected to the commercial, so that people who are watching at home can experience, whatever the product promotion is or whatever the promotion is for that campaign. And then we've also seen really interesting experiences with live televised events as well, or just live events in general, where, let's say you're watching from home. So a really good one was the Pepsi Super Bowl halftime show. So there was one year was Eminem performing, and most of us are not at the Super Bowl. And even if you are at the Super Bowl, you're probably not front row. You're probably in the nosebleeds watching. So what was great about this experience was you scan the QR code on your Pepsi can, and then you were able to access like the halftime show up front and close in your own space. So it's kind of nice if you wanted to add something to a live experience or add something to a televised experience. So yeah, I don't think there's really one format where we can say, this is the best way to do web AR. I think it really just depends on where your audience is, how you want to advertise the experience, and then of course, making it accessible to those audiences. So yeah, I think it really just varies depending on whatever the brand's goal is or the agency's goal is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, look, that was tremendously insightful. So I just want to thank you again, Amanda, for joining us for our Darabase Meet session. It was brilliant to hear your views. Lots and lots of really, really interesting things for hopefully anyone viewing this to kind of listen more about, but certainly actually for us, it's always interesting catching up with you. So I just want to take this opportunity to thank you so much for doing this with us today, and to wish you all the best.
Thanks so much for having me, Oliver. It's been a pleasure, and we're excited to see, all the creative work that comes out of Darabase this year. So thank you.
We'll try our best.